Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Weldie and Andrew here to pour one out, so to speak, for the women's team as they end up falling in 3 games to the Golden Gophers in a a little bit, I guess, of an over. I'm blanking on it. What is it? An over estimate? No, over performance. I don't know. I'm trying to find words. Can't find it. But, pushing it to 3 games. But clearly Saturday and Sunday wasn't in the cards there for the Huskies. So we'll talk a little bit about the season as a whole and also, obviously wrap up the season. And, we'll probably go a little bit more in depth in the off season, about roster changes and, obviously with the transfer portal, that all is going to put a little bit of a wrinkle into things, but we're going to kind of focus on the here and now and what we've got for the Huskies and the men's opponent as well. That's all lined up as the NCHC regular season comes to a close. So I guess, Andrew, if it is okay with you, when I say that we're going to go ahead and pour one out, what do you say that we actually start the show and pour one out?
Sounds like a plan.
So we're talking about whiskey today.
Whiskey.
All right. We are... we've got the English Distillery Smoky Single Malt Whiskey. Do you want to guess where it's from?
With English in the title, I'm going to go on a limb and say England.
That is correct.
Wow.
Look at
Surprised
that.
I got that right.
Right. Here's the thing. It says smoky, and I like a little smoke to my whiskey. So if this isn't smoky, I'm going to be quite disappointed. So
and it would be bad advertising.
Yeah, so it's definitely a lighter color than I would have expected, but here we go.
And I was able to see the smoke rising from the glass.
It's it's kind of like the old fashioned brick and bourbon. They've got the smoke and light it, and but it is smoky. So they are not wrong on their advertisement of the smokiness. That's pretty good. That's good. You know what? I'm going to give this a 7.9. 7.9. Not quite an 8, but 7.9.
Yeah, not too shabby.
No, not too bad. English. Just work on your naming. It's a little on the nose. But
I tend to agree with that assessment.
Exactly. So, all right, we're going to kick it off here. The women, as they end up falling to the dreaded Golden Gophers, pulled off the upset there in the first game. 1-0 overtime victory. Grace Wolf off the draw was able to get the puck behind Hannah Clark, and Carrico gets the 42 save shutout. And a result that was having me jumping across the kitchen as I was cleaning in the evening. So I was pretty excited about that. And then Saturday, I was actually really impressed the first 10 minutes. I thought the Huskies came out and they were flying. I thought they were doing really well. They were ahead a little bit on shots, the pressure. And then it was just, I think it was on their second shot. About halfway through the period, they ended up getting the goal and making it 1-0 Gophers. And then the second period happened. From a goal scoring perspective, it wasn't nearly as bad as it was at the Herb when they put up 7 in the period. But Minnesota just had all of the possession and the puck and the pressure, and was able to get 2 goals there to make it 3-0. And Huskies weren't able to climb their way back in. And then Saturday's game was a little bit of the same, as a 6-1 victory for the Golden Gophers officially puts the nail in the coffin for the Huskies. So overall, what were your thoughts on the weekend?
I mean, going to 3 games, we did not expect that. If you go back to last show, we were expecting sweeps for all 4 of the WCHA quarterfinals, and we were incorrect on that assessment. Not only did St. Cloud snag that game 1 victory, Mankato won game 2 in their series against Duluth, and game 3, moving on to the final face-off, the WCHA. So, and even Bemidji gave Wisconsin, it took them into overtime in their game 2. So some competitive results this weekend bucked the trend. And for St. Cloud's perspective, we talked about how Ritter obviously has been a house of horrors for the Huskies, just getting their 2nd victory all time there, their 1st victory coming last year, also with Carrico in net. And first of all, the St. Cloud line chart with the pronunciation guide has another change, which the Gopher announcer was implementing this weekend. To my surprise, I had to consult that again, and it's Amelia Kierko, or is it Kierka? Because it was Kierko based on last week's line chart at Wisconsin. Now it's Kierka. So that's like a different number of syllables in the name. They did this with Yolosuo as well, went back and forth on her pronunciation. I can only go with what the pronunciation guy that the school puts out says. And I'm going to apologize in advance because I've gotten Carrico nailed in my brain over the last year and a half. So however you pronounce it, but I believe it is from using their official document, Amelia Kierka. Based on her performance alone on Friday night, getting the shutout, St. Cloud was able to extend the series, and huge props to her and huge props to Wolf as well. Kind of a capstone achievement of her career, most games all time for the women's side in St. Cloud State history. Some of that is a good part of that, obviously, is due to the 5-year eligibility, or partial 5 years. She had the injury shortened years. She got the medical red shirt for, but congrats on a career well done for Wolf, and getting an overtime playoff winner is commendable way to kind of go out on that. Clearly, we would have loved to have seen the Huskies win either game 2 or game 3 in advance. In the playoffs, we knew the difficulties coming into the series about the Gophers, but the last time these two teams played each other was not entirely competitive from St. Cloud's perspective. Much more so, even the 6-1 game, I think, was not indicative of St. Cloud's effort in that 3rd and final game. Just not much gas left in the tank, and the talent disparity between the two teams was just made that much more apparent when you're going on fumes, basically, in a game 3 situation, including an overtime in one of those first 2 games. So this team was going to be stretched thin when it came to series in the playoffs, and especially against a team that's deeper than them in Minnesota and more talented. You were kind of needing another sort of 1-0, 2-1 game. So when the Gophers scored 2 goals pretty early in the Sunday game 3, you can tell the game was the season was kind of slipping away. Still put up a fight there. I mean, I like that goal with Jackal kind of setting up and doing some dirty work, getting Zimmerman the puck to knock in a goal off Hannah Clark and in. Fortunate goal, but I like the effort from that line with Zimmerman and Jackal creating that one kind of out of nothing The St. Cloud offense just in general wasn't, especially like the Sunderland Sorial line, wasn't as dynamic as we've come to know in the last, pretty much for the bulk of this season, but particularly down the stretch with like Sorial's big performance against Bemidji a few weeks ago, and her good weekend in Wisconsin, even though the team didn't have great success. Sorial was pretty good last weekend. Sunderland also scoring last weekend. That line was I think targeted by the Gophers to shut them down this weekend, and that they did. So I mean, the season ends. Obviously, that's never a positive thing, and the record overall, not where St. Cloud would like to have it, especially coming off several 500 seasons in a row under Adolski. This was a step back in terms of just the overall record. But yet you have this thing at the end of the season where you get a playoff win, first playoff win in 15 years, 16 years, 2010, 30, I think, straight playoff games they had lost. So good to get off that schneid. Always good to beat the Gophers. Nice to have them play a third game to kind of tire them out in preparation in the WCHA playoffs. You kind of exposed some of their weaknesses as well. And they did seem notably out of sync, and I think have been negatively impacted by the Olympics just with the chemistry of the team. So a way to, not end the season on a high note, because you ended up losing the playoff series, obviously, but winning a playoff game is a nice little footnote, I think, in Yellowsua's first year, and hopefully something the Huskies can build on for next year.
You brought up Sorial Sunderland line, and I think it was a little bit more prevalent in the first game. Granted, they won that game, but I do feel that I think Sorial needs to be a little bit more selfish. I think there were multiple times where instead of putting a shot on net, she decides to try to make an extra play or defers to pass to try to make what would be an incredible pass, but is either just a little bit off the mark or gets picked off or defended in some way, shape, or form. But I mean, I trust her at all times to just make a shot. And I would like to see that maybe a little bit more. And I'm really hoping next year there's maybe that little extra bit of selfishness to her game where she is able to put that on net. Because, I mean, we see that, she's able to rack up the assists. But, I would like a little bit more from her on that side from the goal scoring, because that's what, a shot on net, it's not only, you have the possibility of scoring, but also, create rebounds and fumbles. And I don't think Hannah Clark is any type of a world beater goaltender. I mean, if you're looking kind of down the list of WCHA goalies, she's middle of the pack. I think it's kind of a game plan that maybe could have been implemented a little bit better kind of going in, is just trying to throw anything and everything on net and trying to get it maybe a little bit more off kilter. And I thought they were doing that the first part of the second period a little bit more. And they were able to generate a little bit more, a little bit chances, and gave me a little bit of hope for that game too. Hope, thinking it might be a repeat of that Gophers Mankato series. But yeah, it was all for naught. With that, and kind of what the Huskies are losing versus what they're, possibly getting and what they're retaining here. Yeah, I mean, a fourth or a sixth place finish is, going to leave a little bit of sour taste in our mouths from where Adolski had it. But you have to, give your hat too, is that, Suo said it was going to be a much more offensively driven team, a little bit more from that aspect of it. And it was a little bit more exciting to watch in that sense. But it's, for the defense and the goaltending, some of it was just not where it has been, as it has been over in the last couple other seasons. So we'll kind of take that into next year, and I'm still liking the direction this program's going, even though the record says that it wasn't an underwhelming season.
Yeah, and it with Mankato, bringing up Mankato's series win at Duluth, and so it kind of made me frustrated because that could have been St. Cloud. I mean, we know about the history between St. Cloud going up to Duluth in playoffs, and we'll get to that on the men's side coming up here. But so it's impossible to say whether or not St. Cloud would have fared better in the series outcome had they played Duluth rather than the Gophers. But we saw kind of what Mankato was able to take advantage of, more favorable matchup, gap between the Gophers and Duluth, big enough for, I think, Mankato to take advantage of that and win that series. And the way, or I guess the reason that St. Cloud wasn't able to put themselves in that position was some stumbles in the regular season. I mean, you could have beaten Mankato in their last regular season game, matchup between each other, to have put yourself in that 5th seed position. Wouldn't have had to sweat out the last weekend of the season going to Wisconsin and having to scoreboard watch to see if Mankato is going to essentially hand you the 5th place spot by dint of their results against St. Thomas. So, I mean, we saw the St. Thomas results weren't very good for St. Cloud this year, even losing some points to Bemidji earlier in the year. The reasons that kept you out of 5th place and perhaps gave you more of a puncher's chance in the playoffs than having to go to Ritter and win 2 games. We saw what it took. Like it goes to overtime in a 0-0 game, and able to get a goal and have Kierka. I'm gonna make so many mistakes. Have her stand on her head in order to get you to that situation, and just scoring 1 goal in each game. We talked a little bit about the offense. The defense too needed to be perfect in those last 2 games to give you a chance. You need to kind of have a similar game plan than you did in game 1. When we saw the second goal on Sunday, that was a bad pass by Peon, breakout pass. I thought the passing just in general from St. Cloud's perspective, and especially in the third game, was just off. Neutral zone or own zone, breakout pass, kinds of things just didn't seem to really click. And I think that, to me, it kind of felt like it was just the gas was running out of the tank there. It wasn't even like trying to have home run passes. It was just kind of anything to get a transition going into the offensive zone, or then once hitting the offensive zone, trying to set some offensive play up. Wasn't able to connect on more than 1 pass. And the Gophers were there to either break it up or turn it over, create offense going back. St. Cloud needed to play a perfect game. They did far from that in those last 2 games, but it gave me enough of a feeling of optimism, especially in game 2, as you mentioned, that they came out with their most kind of the best jump. You kind of could see that after the big emotional swing after winning game 1, how they did it. They had an opportunity, and for them to have pulled off the miracle and winning the series this weekend, I think he needed to get out to the lead on that Saturday game 2. Had those opportunities. They're creating chances. They outshot them in that first period. I think that the grade A's were a little bit fewer than I would have liked based on the amount of possession that surprisingly they were able to generate. But I think once the Gophers, again, even in that first period, coming out of it with the lead, getting some depth scoring as well. Murphy was Murphy this weekend, especially in game 2.
Murphy was extra Murphy, like a side of
double Murphy.
Yeah. Kind of a fun little addendum. Avery Myers, TikTok, was in the crowd and had a couple of videos of Abby Murphy and her theatrics, shall we say. So I commented on one, and there's nothing like a 41-year-old commenting on a recently graduated TikTok, but whatever. That's beside the point. Right, exactly. But I said, little known fact, the extra E in her first name stands for embellishment. And I had 2 current Huskies players like that comment. So that is kind of my claim to fame as of right now.
Yeah. Put that one on your board of achievements. Those 2 likes. Don't tell me who those likes. Tell me off air. We don't want to betray anybody's confidence.
I don't know. It's all public. So, I mean,
I don't even know.
Other people's
I don't even know what TikTok
other people's
is.
likes.
That's how old I am. I don't know.
I don't even know if other people's likes are there. Well, 2 of them did. And if you can guess the 2, you'll win a prize.
Yes. I mean, she had a good Saturday game in particular, but the depth scoring for the Gophers, I think that's what's going to get them to where they need to be. And they were able to get some depth scoring in those last 2 games, obviously getting 0 scoring. I did tweet this out. I mean, shutouts in general of the Gophers, a team that scored double-digit goals in 4 separate games this season. So shutting this team out is no mean feat. Just 4 times since 2020 that they've been shut out, and the other 4 times prior to Kierkegaard's shutout on Friday. All teams that either won the national title that season or played in the national title game. 3 of them were Wisconsin teams. 1 was Ohio State. So that should put that into context. Kierkegaard's achievement of shutting out such a high-powered offense. But in order to have another Huskies win this weekend, you probably needed that, but as well as some more offense than they were able to generate. Just 3 goals total on the weekend. Very difficult, even to win 1 game. The fact that they were able to win 1 game was kind of amazing. But so, I mean, it was a longer series than I anticipated. I got another game out of it. I did have a question because I was watching the Sunday game on my phone coming back from a road trip, so I didn't have the sound on. Was Frost not at the game? Because they didn't show him behind the bench, and they showed one of their assistants instead. Was he sick or something? Did you catch anything on the broadcast?
You know what? I didn't catch anything either, but I also had it on mute. So okay. I
just wondering if you had any details on that. Maybe I missed something. I was pretty much watching it with my eyes peeled to it. So, and he was there behind the bench for the first 2 games. So I was wondering if I missed something. But
I didn't even.
Either way,
I didn't even clock it. So that's how.
Well, they kept showing this other one of their assistants, and they even showed like the graphic of like his background, and made me think, well, maybe they're like trying to do a little bit more introduction of like this interim head coach for this game 3, which there had been some compelling reason that Frost was unavailable. Either that, or I just missed it, and he was there as always. But I was curious about that. If anyone has any insight, please let me know, because it was like, what did I miss? But in terms of the Huskies, like I said, bad way to end the season, but in a sense, like, having to stretch the Gophers to their maximum, I don't mind that part of it. And just knowing that we've got so much of this team coming back, hopefully, I mean, obviously barring any transfer portal shenanigans, most of what we saw on the ice, at least the impact players, we're going to see in Huskies uniform again next year. And looking forward to seeing how this team can take that next step, because we saw a lot of glimpses this year. There was a lot of negatives as well, and the losses obviously far outnumbered the number of wins that we would have wanted. But as far as from a talent perspective goes, it does give me hope for some further improvements and further improved prospects for this team's future.
Very much so. Do you have a POW?
I do. I mean, I think Kierkegaard is the obvious choice, And I think she probably is the most deserving choice for this weekend, because I don't think you make it to 3 games without her performance on Friday. However, I am going to go off the reservation a little bit and do a Pacino of a sort, because it's the last time that I'm able to give a POW to Grace Wolf. And part of this is looking at the list of POWs this season, now that this will be the final POW that we award for the women's side this season. I gave it to Wolf once earlier this season, and I've given it to Kierka 3 times, which is tied with Sunderland for my most frequent POW, which compared considering Kierka's injury concerns earlier this season, I think that sounds about right. 3 apiece between her and Sunderland, but Kierka's had that injury, so less games. Arguably the most valuable player for the Huskies this season. We'll get to that in our Herbies. I'm sure we'll touch on both of those players. But Wolf just having the 1 POW, I mean, again, that kind of makes sense too, because she's not a player, even though she had a good point production year for a defender this season. I don't think she's a player that makes headlines in terms of point production, or she doesn't make highlight reels. She's not that kind of player. But as captain this season and as more of a stay-at-home type, and we've talked about kind of her, especially in the years past, where we've been impressed with her, but there has been sort of plays where she's noticeably been, burned defensively. I thought she kept those kind of situations to a minimum this year. Thought she was a really steady presence. I didn't see her get, have like super high moments or super low moments. She was always kind of an expected, steady presence. And you need that, especially from the blue line, and especially from a captain, like in a leadership position like that. So, and like I said, she gets the game-winning goal in overtime. Huge moment for her. Maybe the biggest standout moment in her college career. I mean, it's not often that you get overtime playoff winners, especially for the Huskies. Like I said, it hasn't been a playoff victory of any type in a decade and a half. So that's a big moment for her as well. So again, I do think Kierka was the star of the weekend, and I am expecting you to give her that POW yourself this weekend. So maybe in anticipation of that, but also just as an appreciation, a tip of the hat for a career well done, I'm going to give the final POW of the women's season this year to Grace Wolf.
My wife was a big fan of, oh man, I don't even know what game it was. Some NHL game, 99 maybe, in high school. And she always had, she said she scored a lot of goals. Her brother would create the Minnesota Wild and make all these ridiculous trades and then have, an all-star team. So it was actually for quite a while that she thought Paul Kariya was on the Minnesota Wild for that reason. Okay, so then it clearly wasn't 99. It had to have been like 01, maybe 02. Anyway, long story short, she always said that she had a lot of goals where all she would do is just bang the shoot button on any offensive zone face-off. So every time that a goal like that happens, it's call it a Teresa goal. And that's kind of what it was for Grace Wolf there, because it was right off the draw. You just bang that shoot button, and sure enough, it was able to go in. So yeah, I don't hate that pick again. A little bit more of a body of work. I agree, but I've always been a big Grace Wolf fan. I thought she was quite the presence there defensively over the years as a Husky, and I think even was a very key component to those Adalski seasons. And I do wonder if she didn't go down with that injury and the Huskies weren't so thin on defense during her red shirt, if kind of what difference that could have made. So yeah. I do agree that it was a heck of a career for her and a good presence. And also anytime that, past her either at men's games or when she was injured and she was on crutches, walking in front of my kids as they were running around her, and me apologizing profusely. She was always really kind to me and my family. So I do really appreciate her and her contributions as a Husky. That being said, Creeko's got mine, and I will get that name right eventually. It's still kind of ingrained, but allowing 8 goals on the weekend, but I think facing like 130 some shots, you don't win the first game without her. You go into 3, it's still a 94 or 95% save percentage. So I think she was a reason that the Huskies were in it, and I do think this is the chance to kind of give her one last shout out to really, from a number standpoint, an incredibly good season as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math. We'll do this maybe at our Herbies, because I think I was proposing perhaps a new Herbies category based on frequency of POWs. One for the men's team, one for the women's team. Just on your side alone, I said I got 3 for Kierka, 3 for Sunderland. Those are my high water marks. For you, I see 3 for Sunderland, 3 for Soriel. And I think that's your most. You had Kierko twice. You had Michaelian 3 times as well. So neither of us had any one player for
Interesting.
House.
How many did I have for Farrell?
2 back to back.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Earlier in the season. You had 2 for Labe earlier in the season as well. I'll count them up. I don't want to do the math on the fly here because that'd be really boring radio. But I will do the math and we'll let you know who the combined, because we'll combine all of our votes and see who comes out on top. But fun project to chart that for the first time in the podcast this year. And I'm glad to have done that.
I wonder if there's maybe you can add a fan aspect to it. Maybe like I could run a poll. I kind of like what you do also with that Sunday shot or Saturday sound off as well, where you kind of give the chance and maybe add a poll into that as well, to be like, who's your POW of the weekend, and have people kind of chime in.
You're telling me, that's good. I if I can find out how to add a poll, I'll do that. But or maybe just do a separate one for that. That's a good idea. I like that idea. So yeah,
look at us,
always
just
good.
making ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Look at us.
With that, like I said, with transfer portals and incoming freshmen, we'll have some details. Maybe I'll have some guests on throughout the summer as well. But we'll see kind of where that all shakes out once we know a little bit more about the shakeup, and after the Herbies, we'll kind of get involved with all of that. But in the meantime, the WCHA playoffs then are set, where we got and that's being played at the Penny Anderson in St. Thomas. So correct. It's Wisconsin is the home team against Minnesota State, and then Ohio State is the home against Minnesota. So we got some intriguing matchups, and I think I saw USHO, the USHO post out that it sounds like Ohio State actually has the inside track to being the number 1 overall seed, which I thought was pretty interesting. But obviously it's going to come
that. Do you know what there are? Because right now Wisconsin is in the NPI lead. I mean, it might come down if Ohio State were to win the WCHA final face-off. I think that would give them the 1, because that means they're probably beating Wisconsin in the title game. But yeah,
I think it has to do with if Minnesota. What was it? basically, yeah, Wisconsin has to win it to stay number one. If they don't win it, there is a 75% chance they'll drop to number two.
So yeah.
With that, yeah, then Ohio State wins it and that. But I think also with Minnesota kind of in there as well, even there's some kind of weird scenarios where Minnesota wins it and how the MPI shakes out. I'll try to find exactly what it was that I found that kind of shook out the numbers.
I mean, it's a very slight NPI edge for Wisconsin right now. Certainly, I would say was Ohio State. Ohio State beating Minnesota is going to help them more than Wisconsin beating Mankato does. And so, yeah, I can see if Ohio State So I get what you're saying. If it comes down to Wisconsin, Ohio State, whoever wins that game is going to get the number one. And I wouldn't be surprised too if the NCAA tournament comes down to that as well. Ohio State versus Wisconsin. It seems to be where it's going again. But we could see, I mean, do you give Mankato any shot against the Badgers? Do you give the Gophers a shot against Ohio State? Where do you think those two quarterfinals how those two are gonna match up? And they are playing the Bob Motzko. They're implementing the Bob Motzko Memorial Day of Rest. This is a Thursday, Saturday tournament. So keep that in mind for your championship.
Motzko Memorial Day of Rest, as it has been foretold.
I'm not sure how much that's going to help attendance on Thursday at the Penny.
Yeah,
but
right.
We'll see.
Exactly. So, yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not giving Mankato a lot of hope against Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin swept obviously the season series fairly handily. Minnesota, Ohio State has kind of some interesting wrinkles to it. I think those are fairly evenly matched teams. I do think Ohio State is a notch ahead of the Gophers. I think they're a little bit deeper, and I trust their back end and their defense maybe a little bit more. So it is like I said, probably is all going to come down to that, Minnesota or Wisconsin, Ohio State, and then probably that for the title as well. But I would like to see some kind of intriguing and see some upsets, and it'll be interesting to see if that does happen. But I just don't have a lot of faith in this Minnesota team that they can put it all together.
Same. Last year, Minnesota went and upset Ohio State in the WCHA playoffs and gave Wisconsin a good run in the title game. That game might have went to overtime, actually. For Ohio State and Wisconsin, I mean, the WCHA tournament is that's not the marquee event for them. That's not what they've been circling on the calendar all year. Now, a team like Mankato needs the tournament, the WCHA tournament, need to win it to get into the NCAAs. So obviously they have the most to play for. Clearly, they're the least talented of these four teams. I don't even think they would disagree with that. And Minnesota might, if they have a possibility, they have a decent cushion on Northeastern at fourth in NPI over Northeastern at fifth. And that'd be a big move if Northeastern was able to jump them, because that basically means they would get the home game against Minnesota, or vice versa. It's basically between Minnesota hosting Northeastern or Northeastern hosting Minnesota. Wrinkle there being Northeastern doesn't have a home rink right now, so they would likely play that at BU's home rink, Walter Brown, if they were to host that game. So Minnesota has a little bit to play for. I don't think they can get the 3 seed. Penn State's got a pretty decent cushion on them. Even if they lose in the AHA title game, I think they're locked into third. So, yeah, I mean, there's not the compelling storylines for the WCHA playoffs. Again, these are great teams and it should be great hockey, but I think the most compelling matchups that will feature these teams are going to be the week later in the regional. And then the week after that, most likely in the Frozen Four, we'll probably have a couple of these teams in that Frozen Four. So it should be interesting. Although, like I said, I think the best drama that's involving one or more of these teams is gonna be in a couple of weeks. But I'm still looking forward to watching how it shakes out. I don't know if I could say that I'm like rooting for Mankato, even though they are like the clear underdog. It's just something about Mankato. I really can't root for them, but I suppose I'll be, I guess, kind of rooting for them just because I like to see an underdog. Plus, I think the another big WCHA related storyline to keep in mind this weekend, as we'll kind of get to previewing a little bit the other conferences, but seeing if Minnesota Duluth can hang on to an at-large spot. Obviously, Duluth's loss in the WCHA playoffs put a big question mark on their chances of making the tournament. They're at 10th right now in NPI, which is the last at-large spot. But Cornell's right on their bumper, and they've also got to root for all of the favorites in the other conference tournaments. Like Penn State plays Mercyhurst for the Atlantic title this Saturday. If Mercyhurst wins that game, that knocks Duluth out. If Cornell from ECAC, they're the only one of the four remaining ECAC teams. If they could even, if they beat Yale and then lose the title game, that might do the trick. Probably not. Clearly, obviously, if they win the ECAC tournament, that knocks Duluth out. If either Holy Cross or Vermont from Hockey East, if either of those teams win, they're two of the final four teams with UConn and Northeastern already locked up an at-large. If Vermont or Holy Cross were to win that Hockey East tournament, that knocks Duluth out. So, I mean, or if Mankato, obviously, if they go the distance in the WCHA, that vanquishes Duluth's tournament chances. Do you see Duluth hanging on to that at-large spot, and what a precarious position to be in, because they've probably still got they still have to practice as if they will make the tournament. They'll know by Saturday night whether or not they're going to be playing in the regional. Do you think they're going to hold on to that 10th and final NPI spot?
I don't think they will. So I was able to kind of switch it over, and it was bracketology column, and Maluski tweeted it out. But it says it was comprised of the staff report. And it says Wisconsin and Ohio State will be the top two teams. Buckeyes have a better chance of moving up to 75% of scenarios. Only a Badgers championship lands them in the top spot. Penn State will be the number 3 seed, so they won't have to leave Pagula for the rest of the season, since that's where the Frozen Four is this year.
Right.
Then you touched on Minnesota and Northeastern. Yeah, they're 4th, 5th, no matter what. So that actually is set in stone. It's just a matter of where they're going to play.
Okay. So I was going to say Northeastern can still jump to 4th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. In 20.7% of the remaining scenarios.
I'm still confused why does Ohio State have the advantage over Wisconsin if Wisconsin is the higher seed currently? Like, if they're saying that Ohio State would have a 75% chance of beating Wisconsin head to head, because that's kind of what it would come down to.
It's 75% of the remaining 8,000 or some scenarios across all of the teams. So it's not
I don't
a
understand.
Percentage chance of happening. It's just of like giving any result happening. It's just that in 75% of those scenarios, the Buckeyes will be the top seed.
The math doesn't make sense
predictor.
to me, but I am not a math
predictor.
major.
So if you want to play around with that, you can hop on over. But all that to say also that Minnesota Duluth. So I mean, right now, as you say, sitting at 10, I feel that obviously WCHA, I don't think you have anything to worry about, but I think I just feel like betting on the favorites in all of those games to go your way is just kind of a tall order and a tall task to have. And I think one of those is going to get kind of a little bit of a shocking upset, and they're going to end up on the outside looking in. So I wonder if they're going to be having some kind of a team get together, watching all the games and having them up and deciding their fate, or if they're just going to go out to a movie and try to forget about it and just see what happens. I don't know. It would be kind of interesting in kind of those situations, how, like, what goes into players' mind when you're on the bubble, just waiting for everything else to happen to see if your season is over or if it's not.
Who do you think it is? Cornell?
Yeah.
Who's going to bump them off? Mercyhurst beating Penn State. I mean, anything can happen in one game. Mercyhurst not bad. They're at 12th right now in NPI. I can't see the Hockey East long shots. Holy Cross and Vermont, they would have to win 2 games. The quarters are Tuesday. We're recording here on Monday, so that Duluth team could have a watch party tomorrow, I suppose,
there
to root for UConn and Northeastern in those games. But and like I said, even if Cornell beats Yale and then loses in the title game, I wonder if that scenario is pondered in that article or that predictor that you have access to. Because I wonder if that would do the trick if they were to beat Yale but then lose to, say, Quinnipiac in the title game or Princeton. All 3 of those teams are currently in the field. So, it's not a great situation for the Bulldogs to be in. But sure, they'll take it rather than having their season done like the Huskies. They have no watch parties to sweat through. So, the one conference that we didn't touch on, NUHA, chalk in the quarters for that. We've got Franklin Pierce. Franklin Pierce as the favorite number 1 seed. Assumption had to go to 3 games to get past their first round matchup. Post does it come down to chalk with Franklin Pierce and Assumption, or do you like St. Anselm or Stonehill, the 3 and 4 seeds respectively? And the NUHA typically goes just pull a team out of a hat. Because chalk is not something I think that NUHA comprehends as a concept. So who are you going with in that all vaunted NUHA?
It's the League of Chaos, and I love it. Obviously looking at Franklin Pierce and the stretch that they've been on, but their one loss so far in February that they have is to St. Anselm, a 6-2 loss. So you know what? I think I picked them earlier, so I'll stick with St. Anselm. So let's keep it. Well, let's keep it rolling.
I did. Looks like you did. In our last pick the field at the end of 2025. You picked St. Anselm. I picked Franklin Pierce. Our first one of the year, you stuck with Sacred Heart. I had Stonehill, so I kind of have 2 of the teams. I'll stay with Franklin Pierce then if I picked him in December, and you stay with St. Anselm. That'll keep it spicy.
There we go.
That'll be for the 11th and final seed in the field. The other thing about like Duluth's position at 10, and if Cornell were to steal that spot from them, that would create a headache for the committee. Because as I mentioned, the ECAC teams are kind of clumped together. Quinnipiac at 7, Yale at 8, Princeton at 9. If you slot Cornell there in at 10, you might have to force an all ECAC matchup in the first round, because that's quite the quandary of 4 ECAC, of 4 teams from the same conference. And again, they prefer, and by when I say prefer, mean will not do it if unless absolutely forced to play interconference games in the first round. So that'll be interesting to see if Cornell does sneak in there, because that's gonna make a prediction of the field that much more difficult. And speaking of which, because we have Championship Saturday on the docket this weekend on the women's side, that means I will be doing one of my annual pick the field shows, or predict the bracket solo shows that I do every year. And I think the women's bracket's been the only time that I've made a mistake since I've started this bit. So I want to try to avoid that, but I kind of want the challenge. So even right now, you're going to have to do more tinkering than normal because you have to break up the 8-9 matchup right now with Yale and Princeton being conference mates. So there already is sort of a rejiggering that needs to be done. And if you add Cornell to that mix, it'd be even more complicated. So I'm kind of hoping for that because it makes it more fun. But stay tuned. You'll see your podcast feed drop a little mini episode, probably on Saturday night, and I'll have that predicted bracket out for fresh off the presses in time for Sunday delivery on your doorstep, so to speak. So keep an eye out for that. It's always fun to do.
As I'm just kind of thumbing through the predictor right now, pretty much every result that I have factored in that includes Cornell winning against Yale but losing in the final has Minnesota Duluth in the tournament.
So Cornell basically needs to win the ECAC to get in.
Yep.
Well, that's good news for Duluth.
That's good news for Duluth. Good news for Dan Jacobson.
Yeah, so we'll see how it all shakes out. It should be fun because there's going to be action all across the country in these title games and in these tournaments. It's a real fun time of year.
And I was just lamenting in the green room session with Andrew about how I can't find just an easy bracket for all the conference games anywhere. Like I couldn't find it, and all I had to do was go to the Ustro NPI predictor, and it was able to be laid out all for me. I can select which ones. So shout out to them because I'm not gonna. Definitely Woden's not gonna have it up on his. So, but able to find it and able to easily read all the brackets, and it was a good resource. So. Yeah, it's a fun time. I'm hoping for some chaos there in Newha. Franklin Pierce fans, if you're listening to the show, I hope I'm sorry that I'm whiskey, or I am hoping for ill will on you, but sure enough, I think that'll be fun.
Do you think Avery Farrell is rooting for them, seeing as she played Franklin Pierce before she transferred to St. Cloud?
I don't think so. I don't think she gives them a lot of thought.
Yeah, I wonder how transfer if it's just out of sight, out of mind. We were never dating, kind of one of those deals. Like if they just kind of disown the team that they left. I'm sure in some situations the breakup is more amicable than others, but we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. Like I said, fun time of year.
It's kind of like the Mad Men quote, or it's like, I envy you. And it's like, I don't think of you at all. It's kind of that kind of situation. It's like,
it's got to be the ones where it's like, they were on an IV and they couldn't, I think that Messier for Duluth had this situation last year where she couldn't come back to Cornell. So she had to transfer. I bet she's like, okay, it's fine with, I'm sure she's not rooting for Cornell because she plays for Duluth now, because we talked about the scenarios that involve Cornell and Duluth. But let's just say, I think she wouldn't be opposed to rooting for Cornell. But like Franklin Pierce with Avery Farrell, maybe not the same story.
Let's change gears. Let's hop over to the men's side. But first, I'm gonna make a swerve here. I'm going to catch you maybe a little bit off guard. This is going to be, I think, a first time ever mid podcast whiskey review revisit. I am amending my earlier ranking of 7.9, and I am bumping it up to an 8.0.
So maybe the second sampling, it really improved.
Yeah, maybe it's just all the smokiness, and it's gotten to me. So, I'm
checking. Just wait a second. I'm checking the rule book. Okay, I do see that is permitted. You can amend the whiskey, the official whiskey rating rule book. I have it pulled up here on PDF. Yeah, I see Rule 13.26a. You can amend. If it's in the same show, you can amend.
If it's in the same show, and if I haven't finished the glass, I believe that's the case. And you can see it is not. You can attest.
Yep. It's official.
That is that I still have some, and as it's gone on, it has grown on me, and I think it deserves to get in that upper echelon of the 8s. So there we go.
All right.
So as we just talked about Minnesota Duluth for a little bit, let's keep talking about them. As we go over the men, Huskies had to wait out their opponent as they had the last weekend of the year off. There was some drama in other conferences as Minnesota State kind of wild in the CCHA, but they ended up with their 8th McNaughton in like 9 years or something along those lines. So they were able to stand tall, but
though they had to settle for celebrating with a cardboard cutout of the trophy. Never changed, Don Lucia.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. There's so many things about that conference. It's just like, I wonder if they're actually like, you know what? Why not? Let's just do it. It's like, people get a kick out of it. It's like, okay.
We were wondering how many Penrye cups there were in the NCHC offices, because we knew that number is more than one. Well, we know the number of McNaughton cups there are, precisely one. There are no knockoffs or copies of it to have second teams.
Really surprises me, considering that trophy has been around for, I don't know, 70 some years, 80 years. I don't know how long the McNaughton's been. It's been around for a long time.
Maybe they feel like because of that they can't copy it. Like it's sacrilege to copy the hollowed. Whereas the Penrose is a decade old, you can knock that off. You got buy 2 get 3 free. That was the deal that the trophy maker made with you. But you don't have that same sort of deal available with the McNaughton.
Yeah, sure enough. So the Huskies had weighed out a couple of results and could kind of finish anywhere from 5th to 8th, but ended up finishing the season in 5th, and puts us at date up at Amsoil, because it wouldn't be a season unless we face Minnesota Duluth again. For like, it feels like a majority of the last how many seasons we've had to face them at least 5 or 6 times throughout. So sure enough, we got a date with them this time up in Amsoil, and it's going to be the Bulldogs have had our number as of late, but at the same time, I'm oddly optimistic about this series, and maybe it's a little bit that Minnesota Duluth had kind of a streaky showing there against Colorado College, especially on that Friday game where they had a 4-1 loss. But end of January, so they had against Western Michigan and Denver. I mean, there's still going to be a high scoring, potent team. One line, there's one of the best in the nation, if not the best in the nation. Got a dynamic special teams unit with a great power play and penalty kill, but now we're going to be rested. We're going to be healthy. I think a lot of it is going to come down to that first period, and especially that first 10 minutes of Friday's game. And coming out on the road where the Huskies have played a little bit better on the road than at home. And if they come out with a fire and really take it to Duluth, I really like our chances. But we've seen Brett Larson and his teams have, kind of sputter out the gate. If that happens, look out, because Duluth can pop in some goals here pretty quick. So kind of what are your thoughts going into the series?
Yeah, so 5th straight year. This is counting the men's and the women's teams for the Huskies, but 5th straight year that one of St. Cloud's teams matches up with Duluth. The 3 years that Adolski was coaching the women's team, all 3 of those years they played Duluth. In 22 and 23 on the men's side, those were playoff series between the men's Bulldogs and the men's Huskies. And now we've got in the 2026 playoffs, we almost had it with the men's, or the women's side, I should say, and we do have it with the men's side. So this is a kind of an annual tradition in this decade so far. St. Cloud and Duluth playing in the playoffs. It's been a regular occasion. And it really soups up the rivalry when you play the frequency of playoff games, I should say, between these two teams just ramps up the rivalry. And so never a fun team to play. I never minced words about my hatred of Duluth, and playoff series will reinvigorate said hatreds. And it's a team, I think, that's not playing their best hockey. Speaking of Duluth here, and especially at home, went winless in regulation in their last 3 conference series. Just one overtime win in that 6-game stretch. 7 games, you go back to December, winless in regulation in 7 straight NCHC games at Amsoil for the Bulldogs. Now, the Huskies have not performed well in Amsoil themselves. The stat there, haven't won there in, I believe, 8 straight games going back to 2022. David Renack shutout was the last time that they won a game in Amsoil. So it's not been a welcome environment for the visitors to come into Duluth and have some success. Now, St. Cloud's going to need to win 2 games this weekend in order to keep their season alive. Duluth seems pretty secure in their NCAA fate at this point, even with kind of a second half. I don't think you could call it a full-on funk, but, lost 4 straight games at one point. Certainly they sort of peaked in the first half of the season. Kind of when the Huskies went up to Duluth in November it may have represented the peak of their season, with a 5-point weekend that Duluth pulled off at the hands of the Huskies. And that 4-0 win they had on that Friday game, you mentioned slow starts for the Huskies. That was one of the most notable flat starts for the Huskies. That not even just the start, but the entire game was one to forget for the Huskies. 4-0 loss and just no offense generated to speak of whatsoever. Played better on that Saturday game, but a disappointing 3rd period lead, lost, and then an overtime loss there. Interesting series between these two teams in January. 6-0 win for the Huskies. That was the Jan Shostak net slamming occasion, which represented, we didn't know it at the time, that represented the last win for the Huskies on home ice in regulation that year. And then that Saturday game, chance to sweep, had a 3rd period lead there. Let it slip away, and Duluth ended up winning that one in regulation. Winning that game, like holding on to that 3rd period lead, if the Huskies were able to do that, that would have been, you would have flipped the locale of this series had that happened, because St. Cloud could have hopped them on the with a sweep in that series instead of a split. But can't go back and change that now. You've got to go up to Duluth and try to win this series. Again, I think you're playing Duluth at the right time in terms of this is not like they're not peaking at the right time. I think I don't know. Duluth has that top line, obviously. We've talked a lot about when these teams have met this year. I thought they contained the Plant line fairly well in Duluth. I mean, fairly well across the 4 games. I mean, the Plants had some key goals. Max Plant with the game winner in overtime in November, for instance, but and the winner in St. Cloud in January in that Saturday game there as well. So, I mean, that's obviously a dangerous line, one of the best in the country. We know how good Gross and Bernovic and whoever plays with them have been. It's been Hall the last few weeks, and it's been Hall the majority of the season. So maybe it's a battle between those two top 2 lines, and then it's like whose depth is better. Then you've got the defensive battle. We talked almost all season, every weekend, we're talking about this Huskies team about defensive lapses. Can the Huskies keep those at a minimum? And then I think maybe perhaps the most important matchup here is goaltending, because we know who Duluth's going to put in net. It's going to be Adam Guyon, who's been their guy for the season. Now, Ethan Dahlmeyer played that Saturday game in Duluth, in St. Cloud, rather, in January, which was a bit of a surprise. We knew that Guyon at that point was going to be leaving for Slovakia. He did not look good on that 6-0 loss on Friday, so Dahlmeyer got the surprise start and played well, won the game. But I would expect Guyon to play every minute this weekend for the Bulldogs. For the Huskies, however, we've talked about this in recent weeks. Who is your goaltender? Because it seems we go every week of, well, it looks like Shostak's got it. Well, now it's Berzins, and now Shostak's hot. Now Berzins is hot. Now with the bye week in between, we don't know how it's kind of developed in practice or whatnot. Shostak has played 3 of the 4 games this season against Duluth. And again, with that shutout, the net slamming shutout, maybe the most high-profile appearance of the goalies this season. My hunch is that we see Shostak on Friday, but the fact that we could see both this weekend is definitely a departure from Duluth's goaltending situation, which is kind of like we know what to expect. What do you expect the Huskies? How do you expect them to play the goaltending situation, and who do you think is between the pipes on Friday nights for Game 1?
I expect Shostak to be in net Game 1. I feel like he gets kind of a majority of the Friday starts. And I think I think Brett would go with him first. Now, at the same time, I wouldn't mind if it throw in a little bit of curveball and put Berzins in net, and just to see how that goes. Now, I do feel Berzins is kind of, as goalies go, he's maybe a little bit more structured, so to speak. I think he's a little bit more. Shostak can get a little bit wild, a little bit overcommittal, and I think Berzins kind of being a steady hand back there and being able to be kind of a calming influence more for the Huskies, I think would be a nice little twist and a little bit of an edge. I don't expect that to happen, though. I still think that Larson is going to go with Shostak.
I agree. And we'll see how it plays out on Friday, how the result goes for the Huskies, because I think the main reason I would want to play Shostak is because I think he's, and you mentioned he gets amped up, he gets excited. Mm-hmm. Playoffs is going to be a moment that he's going to get especially jazzed, I think. Now, there is the possibility that he kind of overcompensates and he's too into it. He's too keyed up, and maybe he, panics and scrambles, tries to overcompensate. Maybe that backfires, but I do think with his playing style, I think you have a better chance of like getting the hot goalie and riding sort of momentum from the goalie position with Showstack. Sure. I think you're right with Bergens is more of a calming presence. And you might need that if, like I said, if Showstack just does too much and it goes pear-shaped on Friday, then I'd be fine with bringing Bergens in on Saturday and maybe settle the series down. Maybe he wins game 2, he come back with Bergens in game 3. But I think with game plan of putting Showstack out there to start and giving him the opportunity for the Huskies to ride him in that playoff series, I think you might be able to see kind of what we saw when he was going really well in January, and that they could sort of ride the hot hand and feed off of his energy in a way that you can't do with Bergens. And again, I'm not saying that to disparage Bergens in any way. But I agree with you. I think we're on the same page that we expect to see Showstack. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if we see both goalies this weekend. But I do think that I think the best case, like the ceiling, like best case scenario result this weekend, I think Showstack has a higher ceiling than Bergens just in this one weekend playoff series scenario. So, but it's like that goaltending battle, whoever it is for the Huskies, if it is even both of them, the results from the goaltenders on both sides is going to be a big reason whoever wins this series. So yeah, I don't know. What do you want to put a prediction out there? I mean, it's been a while since this team has won in Duluth. Are you expecting not only a win, but 2 of them this weekend?
Yeah. And this is where I kind of struggle because, looking back over the last couple of series here, the goaltending hasn't been good. Obviously, North Dakota, you gave up 5 with a goalie in net. They're at North Dakota on Saturday. You gave up 4, which again with that game, you had that in the palm of your hand, and you end up running that one down your leg. So it looking at all of that, it's just putting everything together, which has really been a struggle for this team, where everybody is on the same page, everybody clicking. And I think when we do that, I don't think there's many teams in the nation that can beat us. But it's just too far, or it's just too rare that, that happens. So I'm fairly confident. I don't know if I'm as confident to say 2 out of 3, but I can definitely see it happening. And you know what? I'm going to be optimistic. I say we're going to win in 3. And so I'm going to say that we're going to have this series. We're going to have Tanner Hendricks in the lineup. So he's going to be playing, and we've got the resurgence of Adam Ingram. So I think both of those things. Now, if we get the goalies on the same page, and if we're able to put all of that together here, I think we've got a series victory on the line. And then we're going to have Minnesota Duluth in men's and women's scoreboard watching. Well, although the men's are pretty much in anyway. I think they're pretty high in the matrix. So
yeah, they would need to sweat it out as much as the women's team does. Yeah, Hendricks. I'm glad you brought that up, because Hendricks, and we've said this concerning other St. Cloud opponents of their recent schedule. Hendricks did not play in either of those series against Duluth earlier this year, so Duluth has not seen him. That's a dynamic that they haven't seen in game action against them. So I'm talking about Duluth. So that should be a dynamic that should work in St. Cloud's favor. This bye week, the eternal debate, rest or rust. If this bye week got some players that much more healthy. We're talking about Hendricks, who might not be 100% still coming back from his injury. Showstacks had some injury concerns in the second half. You'd like to think that they took full advantage of this week off. And with Duluth kind of scuffling at this point, getting them back in the mix here, maybe expose some tiredness and fatigue down the stretch. We're going to learn a lot about that first 10 minutes, as you said on Friday, because we've seen St. Cloud come out of bye weeks before pretty flat. And I would hope that because it's the playoffs, because your season's on the line, it's not like Duluth, as you mentioned, who's probably going to be playing beyond this weekend, win or lose this series. St. Cloud will be going home, hitting the golf course if they are not successful and win 2 games this weekend. So I really hope to see a sense of urgency kind of right at puck drop on Friday. Like to see St. Cloud take, be assertive, take the first lead. That would be obviously ideal situation. I do think they're definitely going to win a game this weekend. I like your thought about winning in 3. Clearly, I'd love to win in 2, of course, but I'm confident, as confident as it can be in a playoff matchup against Duluth. Duluth in the playoffs go back to any number of recent tournaments, whether it be conference or NCAAs, and you can hear me scream into the void. So I hope to avoid yet another rendition of that. But yeah, I'm going to jump on your train because you've been better at predictions this year. So I'll say out of 3, and let's say one of those wins. I'm not going to say which game, but I'm going to say one of them goes into overtime. No more 3-on-3. Thank God. They'll be full 5-on-5 until the night is very old. Sudden death. So be 5-on-5, no 3-on-3 shenanigans to get caught into. So
which is kind of a little bit of a bummer because earlier this season, Andrew did give us a new sounder that I have uploaded and have it ready to go.
You're never going to play it.
And we're never going to play it now. And I actually have never listened to it. So it's now it's going to get lost in the ether until
it was only valid for that 1 week.
Yeah.
Which means it was not a great sounder because it wasn't evergreen. The best sounders are ones that aren't dependent on context.
I think the context because it was like 2 series in a row or something like that was like, okay, we got to get a sounder because this is going to continue happening. And thankfully it didn't happen anymore. And it had to do with personnel in the 3-on-3, so it's SCSU overtime sounder is the name of the file. That's all I know about it. So it's
I'm not sure why you're teasing this. We're never going to play it. So
I want everyone, because I have to live in this pain as well. So I want to make sure the listeners do too, that we have a sounder here, a new sounder that we'll just never hear. Cause I gotten a lot of feedback about how many people love the probability matrix.
Really?
Oh yeah. People love that. Dan Jacobson, I believe he said that he almost he thought he hit something in the garage when the explosion came on. So that was big. It was I want everyone else to kind of feel my pain and feel also my be with me down here in this in this sadness. So. Maybe in the future. We'll see.
Yep, but we don't need to wallow in 3-on-3 misery this weekend. That's for another season.
That's the key thing. Yep, exactly.
And I do think one of these Huskies wins this weekend will come in overtime. Would it be fun too if it was game 3? Be like a Andreas Nodal flashback to Huskies Bulldogs playoff lore.
Why not have one of them go 3 overtimes?
Yeah,
why not? Right.
Yep.
we should also note, and I actually should kind of go back to the women for a second as well. All rookie team for Sydney Lamb was on
I
the
missed
list.
that.
So congratulations to her. But also with Tyson Gross, who was the conference goal scoring leader, which apparently is a postseason or an award that they have. So most goals in conference play in the NCHC went to Tyson Gross, and he was second in points overall in conference play. So kind of more feathers into his cap, and kind of an amazing season he had, and really amazing player that Tyson Gross has turned out to be.
Let's keep it going. I mean, this is where the stars really come out to shine. Playoff time. Let's see it happen.
Mm-hmm. With our predictions as well, do you feel Adam Ingram gets a goal this weekend? Does he continue his hot streak?
Why not?
Yeah, I think so too. I feel it.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good player to start heating up. I mean, get that like third line, or I think even in North Dakota, they're listed as fourth line. But him and Miettinen, I think, were clicking a little bit too. So, well, yeah, I'd like to see again. I talked about like how Larson always shuffles lines up. We'll see how they look this weekend. But yeah, that's if we can get that would be a good sign. If we continue to get their Ingram hot streak, if that extends, that's going to be a good foreshadowing for the Huskies being successful this weekend.
We're going to look on Friday and see Ryman with Hall or something and just be like, what are we doing?
Ocean Wallace makes his season debut.
Any other thing kind of in the NCHC at least? North Dakota takes on Omaha. Denver takes on Miami, Western and Colorado College. Any of those kind of strike your fancy? Arizona State, which, kind of a shocker. Not only, I think kind of preseason dark horse in some retrospects. I think we had them, middle or upper echelon? I think we had them.
We both had them fourth, and that's where the coaches poll, preseason poll, had them as well, I believe. So, yeah, most prognosticators, the smart people like me and you, were thinking that they were going to be a home ice in the playoffs team, but swing and a miss big time on that. And we talked about them last week about how disappointing, especially the second half, just collapsed. And the fact that Powers, I did check this in November, they announced an extension, but they announced it as they called it he's the endowed head coach of the hockey team, because
not the
there's no double entendre at all with that. But what that means is that
is it a amount of years? Is it a well-endowed amount of years for him?
They had to call it something different because it wasn't, a normal extension where the school is paying the guy. It's an alum who fronted the money and earmarked it for Powers' extension. So one of their
the tin can to get new refrigeration here at the Herb, and they just have alums just giving bags of money out.
But if you're Arizona State and their athletic department, are you really a big fan of that move now? I mean, yes, it saves you a little bit of money, I suppose, or takes the financial obligation off the school itself and onto one individual. But at the same time, what's the saying? He who pays the piper calls the tune. Now you're the main point man in your program, your head coach. You can't fire him legally or contractually because someone else is paying his contract. So it really is on the whim of the donor who fronted the money. I don't like that. I feel like if I was in the school's position, it's ironic that his name is Powers, because Arizona State does not have the power in that situation to dictate who's in charge of their hockey program. Again, maybe it's a one-season blip. We've talked about how they're able to get, be active on the transfer portal side. There might be some exits in that based on their results this season. But they don't even make it to March. That's how their second half went so badly for them in Tempe. But we'll see if that's a sign of things to come, or just, like I said, a blip in the radar, going from second place last year, I think, all the way to 9th and out of the playoffs. The last time that we'll have a 9th place and you don't get to even see the playoffs, because next year we're going to 10 and everyone makes the playoffs. So congrats, I suppose, on that certain donor who's paying for Bowers' contract and for Arizona State, I suppose, on a dubious achievement.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, like, at the same token, if you're thinking about extending him anyway, it's like, well, somebody else has given him the money, and as long as the stands are full, and to college hockey as well, it's very much, at a lot of places, at least, you have a lot longer of a leash in this niche now, with kind of a newer program. I say newer, I mean, it's how old now, but at the same time, it's program, it's the only head coach that you've had, and it's kind of a key moment that in this conference, if you're going to make a splash and then to kind of get waylaid all of a sudden, and now you're in the cellar, and the transfer portal, if that's an exodus, it can kind of turn sideways real quick. And if you don't have the ability to kick him to the curb, it's quite the precarious situation to be in for Arizona State.
Who do you got in these other matchups? I mean, obviously, I think North Dakota over Omaha. I don't think that's going to be much of a series. Same with Denver and Miami. Western and CC might be a little bit compelling. CC, Embarico's playing really well here down the stretch.
That's the one that it's like, if you might get goalied there if you're Western. Now,
no, I still
Western's a better
like
team,
Western.
Yeah.
I would say of the series, the St. Cloud Duluth, no surprise, the 4-5 matchup is the most even. But I would keep an eye on that Western CC series. Well, CC went into Western a couple years ago. I think that was 2023 as the 7th seed and swept Western in Kalamazoo. So they've done this before, and that was Embarico on that team as well. So I'm sure Western probably wasn't thrilled. They even went out to Colorado Springs 2 weeks ago. Western got out of that series with 4 points, maybe even 5 points, but very low scoring games. So Embarico was playing really well that weekend. So I'm sure they're not thrilled to see him and the Tigers, but that's probably going to be a low scoring series, I would assume. But I would say that I would say sweeps with Denver and North Dakota in those series. But the other two, especially the Huskies and the Bulldogs, have the best chance to go 3 games and potential for some upsets. I'd like to see it.
Omaha and North Dakota have had a fair amount of history in the playoffs. Last year they played each other. North Dakota swept. 3 years ago, I think they had to go to 3 games. North Dakota actually dropped the first one. That was at Omaha.
Correct.
They dropped the first one, but North Dakota was able to rattle off the next 2. So
last year was at Omaha as well, and North Dakota upset them. They played in the playoffs several years in a row now, whether a first round series or then at the X. No, the X no longer obviously a part of this postseason format. Interestingly, too, Omaha 8 regulation wins in conference play this year. Minnesota Duluth 8 regulation wins in conference play this year. Difference there, Duluth's at 4th in a home ice position. Omaha had a scratch and claw into the last day of the regular season to clinch a playoff spot in the NCHC playoffs. And obviously because Duluth was able to make a bunch of overtimes and Omaha didn't make any overtimes.
0.
Which is weird for them because they usually thrive on overtime. But Also, St. Cloud State with 8 regulation wins. So the most prized kind of wins, we've got the same amount from 4th place to 8th place, which is kind of a quirk. Funny how it all kind of shakes out like that.
Yep, sure enough. So I don't foresee, any, like, I just feel that there's just a clear, between, North Dakota, Denver, and Western Michigan. Like, I just don't see an upset happening. Maybe I can see Miami taking a game of Denver. But it's, I don't know. I don't see any huge rock in the boat, seismic upset here coming in the NCHC.
Yeah, I think I would be pretty surprised if either Omaha or Miami took a game. And you see too that you blink, St. Cloud saw Denver month and a half ago, whatever, and the whole storyline there was that Denver was kind of scuffling. And that Saturday game, St. Cloud beats them on Friday. Saturday game, Quentin Miller goes out early with an injury. In steps Johnny Hicks. He of, at that point, 50 minutes roughly of time, just garbage time appearances to that point. Hadn't had a start at the college level at that point. Well, fast forward now, Denver's on a heater. Johnny Hicks 8-0 with 1 tie, a 958 save, 114 goals against. So now they've got, and it's not like Miller was playing poorly either. He was just removed because of an injury. He kind of got Wally pipped because Johnny Hicks is red hot now, and I would assume kind of their playoff ride or die starter. So it's just funny how things can, snap of a finger, one injury, and now we got a new goalie, and he's red hot, and we're not thinking any other player between the pipes for Denver. So
God, maybe can't keep getting away with this. Yeah.
I know.
They just get away with it every time,
every single year. So
I want to know who you have. I don't know if we want to go through all of the team, all of the other players. Maybe we do. I don't know, but like, I'm really interested. I love the idea since it was announced. But the United Collegiate Hockey Cup that's taking place, coming up this weekend. First off, I haven't seen anything about it. I think it would be a huge swing and a miss if they don't put these up for free on YouTube. Now, I don't know if they have, I don't know if they're on Flow already or if they have some other streaming sites for it, but this is all of the Independence teams got together and they've got their own little postseason tournament, which is actually just an extension of regular season games. So they still have 3-on-3 overtime and shootouts to determine it. But still, Alaska, Anchorage, Lindenwood, Long Island, and Stonehill are all facing together in a tournament to crown an independent champion, which I think is just a sweet idea. And like, obviously I'm watching my team first and foremost, but I think it would be awesome to if these were available streaming anywhere, or like, I think the PWHL has had really good success on YouTube. Throw it up on YouTube. I think it'd be a lot of fun to watch some of these games.
Well, sorry to burst your bubble. I'm just Googling now, and Lindenwood is hosting it. And because of that, Lindenwood they must have a contract with Flow Sports. I'm just seeing I'm seeing a news article from September. It says the United College Hockey Cup will be streamed via Flow. So no YouTube, unfortunately.
All right. Well, that's a bummer.
And I wish, it's a cool idea. I wish there was more stakes involved. Alaska is the number 1 seed in this thing of those 5 teams, and they're 36th in pairwise, so they have no chance of making the tournament. And there's really no even secondary, like, if they win, that could boost some other bubble teams' chances. So there's not other than the hardware, which has just been created, talking about making cups and trophies. This is a brand new one. Other than that, and the prestige of it, there's really not much. No tournament berth. This is obviously not like the other conferences where whoever wins gets an automatic berth. They haven't been granted that status yet. I don't think we've mentioned on here yet that it seems like we're primed to have another new team in college hockey with Maryville, another team in Missouri, state of Missouri. So I guess Lindenwood will have a built-in rival, in-state rival. Maryville's been a very successful team at the club level, so they're making the jump, similar to how Lindenwood made the jump a few years ago. Maryville, I don't know if that's been officially announced, but it looks like McMahon says it's imminent. It should happen probably within the next month, maybe even a couple of weeks, maybe even to coincide with this United Cup this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it official then.
Along the same time as Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois and Minnesota Moorhead, and who's all the
Iowa.
other almost ones? Iowa, Oregon. What was the one from a couple of months ago? Oklahoma State. People were excited about that. So, yeah, it looks like, and that's the thing how it goes in college hockey. Let's say, I wish it would be one of those Big Ten or name brand type schools. We get Maryville, which is no shade thrown at Maryville, but it's a little harder to celebrate their arrival than it is a team that everybody's kind of familiar with as a brand. But if that does happen, which it does seem like it's primed to do so, we always like more teams in NCAA hockey. That would get us back to 64, dropping down this year after the loss of AIC. No comment on AIC's history as a hockey program
who has
at
never
all.
had any big wins ever in hockey.
Never,
I can remember, at least.
Never. I don't even know what their nickname was. I don't
exactly.
remember. What were their colors? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But this would get us back to 64. And if that does happen, they would probably join this United Collegiate Hockey Cup field next year. They likely wouldn't, even if they get to 6 teams, which is like the minimum number of teams you need to get a tournament berth. There's still more above that. They likely wouldn't get granted an automatic berth, even if Maryville were to join them. Still would need some more teams. I guess the rule is you need 6 D1 teams to get an automatic berth. Other than if there's not 6 D1 teams, you can apply to get an auto bid, but it would not be likely that they would get it even if a 6 team would join. But it would just be another team to add to the mix, which is something we always celebrate. So yeah, that's one that we can look forward to this weekend. We've still got Big Ten and Hockey East that are in regular season play. Just one more weekend of that until their playoffs start. We did touch on.
I just want to say quickly, like, the appeal of the United Collegiate Hockey Cup for me is the lack of stakes. I think it's kind of a cool story that, hey, we don't really have any conference thing to play for. We're a bunch of independents. Let's just have our own little party and have our own thing. And I think it actually could be some kind of interesting storylines could come out of it, and some interesting just kind of scenarios, where, like a Long Island or a Stonehill who haven't had the best season could kind of make a run and get hot, and all of a sudden they're playing for a faux championship. I don't know. I think it'll be kind of a unique thing that can only happen in college hockey.
Well, you're into it. Let's take a pick. Alaska's the number 1 seed. You got Lindenwood being the home team. They're the number 2 seed. Long Island's 3, Stonehill 4, Anchorage 5. Who do you got out of that 5 teams?
Ooh,
I'm taking Anchorage, underdog all the way.
Wow. Okay, you're going super underdog.
Oh
here.
yeah.
It'll be tough to go up against Alaska. So I think that might be kind of a cop out, but I'll go with Alaska. I'll go with the Nanooks.
I'm mostly going for Anchorage because that would help St. Cloud's pairwise. because they played Anchorage earlier this season. Glad that you got that joke. In all honesty, I'm going to go with Lindenwood. I like their home ice advantage. I think they're going to use the home crowd to their advantage in that tournament. So yeah, we talked a little bit about the CCHA with Mankato winning that, winning the number one overall seed, winning the McNaughton CCHA. But I mean, 5 teams separated by 2 points. St. Thomas, Augustana, who didn't play last weekend, they were the best benefit of all these teams in NPI because they snuck up to 14th in NPI. We've talked about how we both think that it's unlikely that CCHA gets more than their automatic conference championship winner, the auto bid, more than that in the NCAA field. Again, I suppose it's possible you get Augustana and the next highest team, probably Mankato, if they meet in the title game. Perhaps they get 2 teams in, but who do you see? You got Mankato against Ferris, you got St. Thomas against Lake State, Augie and Bemidji, Tech against Bowling Green for 2 weekends in a row. Who do you see maybe this weekend or just overall in the CCHA? Who do you like coming out of that tournament there?
I don't know. For some reason, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Michigan Tech. So I'm going for Huskies.
Sounds like Lucia had a soft spot for them too, because he brought the McNaughton there to Houghton there and nowhere else. You think? I mean, he could even, to avoid the egg on the face moment of having Mankato celebrate with a cardboard cutout of a trophy, he could have gamed the refs, give Tech this game at least to give them a share of the McNaughton. I mean, all they had to do was take 3 points against Bowling, and they only took 1. And they would have guaranteed a tie or at least a tie to the McNaughton, which would have then made it more sense to have a McNaughton presentation in Houghton. But he couldn't even do that. He can't even game the refs like a good mobbed up commissioner can do. So come on, Don. Your name is Don, literally. Don. Can't you mob it up a little bit more? There's no shortage of drama.
He's got to lay low a little bit from all of the allegations after the championship game, after the goal that was disallowed.
That set a high bar. That set a high bar for him, and he's never really going to be able to top that. But he's trying.
Maybe that's why he didn't want to also be in Mankato. I was like, no, I can't go back. It's just the PTSD. I can't. Just holding his knees, rocking back and forth. I can't go back there. I can't. So
you like Tech. You like Tech. I've always had an Augie soft spot. I think I took him in at least one of our Pick the Field shows this year. So yeah, in November I took him. In December, what did I take in December? I took him in December. You took him in December. You took 2 teams out of the CCHA in December. You had Cato and Augustana. So you had lost your.
I lost my Michigan Tech love.
Your love affair with Tech at that point. So I'm going Vikes. I'm going with the Vikings.
I do
in the CCHA.
I think they had. Am I remembering correctly? Did they have a little bit of a skid? Yeah, they lost 2 to Michigan Tech, 1 in overtime, and then lost 1 to Bowling Green. They tied and then beat St. Thomas at St. Thomas to end the series. I do also like Augustana. I think they've got a good chance here. And I think also, if Augustana does make the tournament, if they do, even as CCHA, if they sneak in as an at-large, I think they are definitely one to kind of circle as a potential upset. I think if they go in as a 4, I think they're a 4 that nobody would want to face.
Well, I mean, if they win the CCHA tournament, there was a chance, especially if teams just slightly ahead of them, like Wisconsin or BC or even Dartmouth, they kind of fall. There's a chance that Augustana could move up to a 3 seed because
really?
they're 14th right now and pretty close behind BC and Wisconsin. And the other thing too is, and I believe this is right, so there is a Sioux Falls regional this year at the Sanford Center in Sioux Falls, but I believe, I'm like 90% sure that's hosted by Omaha. So it's not
it is.
that it's not that Augustana needs to go there, but that'd be compelling. They're in the field.
I think the committee will put Providence in Providence. Augustana and Sioux Falls.
That would allay the fears of East Coast bias if they're going to move mountains to put Augustana in Sioux Falls. But I'd love to see it. It would make for a interesting dynamic, them being in their home city.
How many people know that Augustana is located in Sioux Falls?
I mean, how many college hockey fans, especially on the East Coast, know what Augustana is?
Exactly.
Everybody knows that it
they won't even notice it until it's 2 years down the road, and they would always like, "Wait a minute, that's BS."
You know, if they slide up to a 3 seed, it's possible they could meet up with Providence. That'd be ironic. So they send Providence to Sioux Falls to play Augustana in Sioux Falls.
That would be wonderful.
Now that I thought about it, I want it to happen. It needs
to happen. Now you have been so good at predicting the field. Are you going to be nervous? You got that in your head. You want that to happen. Are you going to get it out of your head to try to remain objective to keep your perfect record intact? Or is it all NPI? Now it's all new. It's completely, maybe they blow up and throw a huge curveball.
Nah, I don't think there's going to be any sort of big curveballs. Augustana might make this easy on everybody by not making the tournament. That might be the most likely scenario, in fact. But I'm picking them, and I always like a challenge.
I don't want that to happen.
I don't back away from a challenge. I like chaos. I like, I can't. We got to move that up. Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. Can we do that? Those are the things that make it interesting. So. Yeah, make it weird.
Like the last couple of years, it's been pretty chalk, if I remember correctly. That you've been it's pretty easy how everything's set out.
I mean, I'd like to say that I'm really smart and I'm seeing things that no one else is.
I'm really throwing you under the bus here, huh?
But no, from my recollection, there was that one year where what was it? It was the Fargo regional with Minnesota and St. Cloud and Mankato that nobody liked all three of those teams being there. That I said that's what they're going to do, and that was the toughest one. But I think the ones since then have been fairly simple. But again, make it tough. That makes it interesting, makes it fun.
Anything else, or should we head over to questions?
Question time.
All right. We had some email questions. Loving the emails that are coming in.
Always.
From Zach, with the current growth of college hockey, do you guys see them changing the NCAA tournament format by adding teams or play-in games? It's kind of an interesting question, interesting wrinkle. I think you inadvertently actually kind of threw a kind of some cool water on what my thought would be like the key to that, if that makes any sense. When you said about having 6 teams into a conference and it specifies it has to be D1 teams. I should actually just answer the question first before I go into that. So I apologize. So answering the question is, I don't think there's a need to. I think 16 teams is enough. I think if you're past that, then you are hovering around, a little bit over 500, or you just haven't had the quality of schedule. And I feel like the answer easily in those instances is just win more games and just, sorry, you stumbled a couple of times. This is the system we have, and if everyone has agreed to it early on, then that's the system that we have here going forward. But the way that I think that it could happen, where they're looking at expanding teams, is if the big schools get upset that some of the little schools are banding together to create a bunch of 6 or 7, maybe even 8 team conferences. And like Big Ten has a very rules for me, not for thee type of a vibe, so to speak, where they're like, you're giving an automatic bid to, you know, let's just say the United Conference with Maryville. And if they get a automatic bid that, you know, would hypothetically knock go Wisconsin off, and, you know, the Big Ten wouldn't have that. And so they'd lobby for more teams in, or at least the change of the rule. Like something will be in play, I think, to make sure it's kept at 16, to make sure the big schools will get have their best option, and the little schools will kind of not be able to. Because I think that's what it kind of comes down to, is that if you're expanding the field, you're giving more power to the little schools, and I think a lot of blue bloods would not be happy about that.
Yeah, I've been on the other side of it, where, well, on the men's side, I've always said shrink the field. I think 16 is too many, because it's too much of a roulette wheel, mostly to foreclose like 2018 Duluth pulling a rabbit out of their butt and winning it. So I think that
it all comes back to Duluth, actually.
It really always does. Now, I will say this. I am 100% in favor of expanding the women's field. You got to make that 12.
The women's need to go to 12. Having 11 is really stupid.
I even did really the math stupid. Last year, because the only reason they expanded to 11, they were at 8, and then they expanded to 11. And that was all based on math, based on the percentage of teams in the men's side that made it. And the percentage on the women's side was closest to 11 teams rather than 12. But now there's some Robert Morris has rejoined the women's side, and Delaware is a fully fledged member on the women's side as well. So because they have more teams, 12 is actually mathematically more of a proportionate amount on the women's side than 11 is. So even the math that they were using to justify going to 11 a few years ago now more jives with having 12 teams. So that is and it's just, it makes it all cleaner. You don't have the 1-4-5 matchup. It's not like a bracket. It just makes it a lot easier math wise just to go to 12. I'm on that soapbox all day long. The men's side, again, I don't think I'm ever going to win the argument of shrinking the field. There would be some sort of, it's almost like every year now we have like let's get creative and tinker with the NCAA tournament, kind of like summer episode that we have. I mean, I'm sure you could do something about, and you could make you could find a way to incorporate this with like a home site format as well. But instead of having, I don't know, like, so the four seeds, like 13 through 16 seeds, you could do something like how the basketball tournament has those play-in games. Like, so all the four seeds could have like a play-in game to then go to the main bracket. So the 13th overall seed plays the 20th overall seed, and whoever wins that game then plays the 4th overall seed in the actual first round. This would be Tuesday or Wednesday before the first weekend of the regional. I don't know where you'd play it. You could do those at home sites. I'm sure Woden would object. You could find something, but have it where the 4 seeds need to win an extra game than everybody else, and do it on shorter rest. Make it more difficult for a 4 seed. Why is it that the number 1 overall seed has to win the same amount of games in neutral sites
Providence
than a 4 seed does in Providence as the 4 seed? So make it more difficult for the lower seeds to win. That would, I think, try somewhat counterbalance the randomness that the tournament has become.
Everything actually just comes back to AIC.
I don't know what you're talking about. We never dated.
We never dated.
I don't know. You could do something like that where we can make the 4 seeds kind of have to work for a little bit more. That's my only kind of suggestion off the top of my head here.
I kind of like that. I know, like the NBA did that a little bit, where they expanded to kind of the plan where they expanded now the 9th and 10th, and they have kind of like a mini bracket or where they go into for the last two spots. So yeah, something along those lines, and I'm for that. I think that also put that for free on YouTube, or something like that. Again, accessibility I think is big, and I mean, I'd rather have it on YouTube than ESPNU. But anyway, yeah, so I don't see that happening with the expanding of the field. Next question. How many years in a row has the men's team missed the NCAA playoff? How many years in a row would they need to miss before Larson's job is in question? I'm not a big fan for the current staff. Maybe Larson is the issue. Maybe the assistants are. Either way, the Herb is empty most games, and this team fits with an NCAA appearance and then fades year after year. Is this the new norm or just a bad stretch? That's Brett from Minneapolis.
One of our ticket winners from earlier this year. Thanks for writing in. We've talked a lot about Larson and his job. We talked a lot about that last week. In fact, go back and listen to that if you want. We'll have more to talk about Larson because I think it's clearly a big topic. His assistants as well. I would not be opposed to getting some new blood in the assistant ranks. I think that would be the first move before there's serious consideration about moving on from Larson. Mentioned last week, he's got 2 more years after this year on his current contract, which means that at least the conversation of whether or not you want to re-up him should be starting right about now, or probably right after the season ends. You're not going to want to go into his last season as a lame duck without being extended. He's got 1 more year until we get to that kind of drop dead point. But that conversation should probably start now. And maybe the first move you do before you have that major conversation is that you maybe make a change among the assistants. I would not be opposed to that. To answer his question, it's been 3 years now. Again, we're getting the cart ahead of the horse here a little bit because this season is not over yet. If they do not make the tournament this season, that would be 3 straight years that they had not made the tournament. In the whole of NCAA, that's not like a remarkable drought. Dartmouth, for instance, hasn't made a tournament since 1980. So 3 years for some teams is a drop in the bucket. We're kind of a little spoiled when it comes to St. Cloud because 3-year drought hasn't occurred in quite some time, since the 90s, I believe. So it could have been in the mid 2000s. 03, 04, 04, 05, 05, 06. That was the last 3-year drought. So they haven't had a longer drought than that since the 90s. They hadn't had a 2-year drought in a while prior to this year. If they don't make it this season, this drought could match that the first 3-year drought in 20 years is I think what I'm trying to say. So it's been a while. We've been spoiled by the success of this program, and clearly those kind of droughts do reflect, at least in some part, on the head coach. We mentioned this about like Greg Powers of Arizona State. Head coach of a college hockey program is your number one point man for a program. So if there's a lack of success when it comes to how you judge a team's overall health, and I don't think it's crazy to use NCAA tournament appearances as the primary barometer of a team's health. I certainly think it's more appropriate to do that than it is like Frozen Fours or national titles, which a lot of fans get bent out of shape about. Maybe not so much St. Cloud State, but Gopher fans, it's national title or bust. I always pump the brakes on that kind of criterion based on the randomness of the tournament. But if you're making the tournament every year or close to it, I think that's a pretty good sign that your program is in decent shape. And yeah, a drought that St. Cloud's in, if it extends this year, is going to be something that I've been thinking about that over the last couple of years. And when you bring in the attendance problems, not all of that, maybe even not much of that, can be attributed to Larson himself. A lot of those are problems beyond his control, talking about like university-wide enrollment issues, that kind of thing. But the hockey program's success or lack thereof in recent years feeds into, at least in part, to those kind of issues as well. So it's always an interesting question to have. We can't really have the full discussion about Larson's future until the season wraps up. So unless you have any thoughts right now, I'd like to get back to this, circle back to it once we do have a finality of how the season ends.
When do you start kind of piecing together that something is like something is maybe a little, maybe they're thinking about not extending them? Like, are you thinking maybe midway through next season? Like, would you expect a deal to be in place if they're looking at extending them? Or like, because I'm just thinking how the season might go next season. Is that what kind of Holly's looking at, as maybe it's time for a change?
Yeah, if we don't hear anything this offseason, I would assume we're going to hear something next offseason, that he's either going to be extended or perhaps there's a parting of the ways. Maybe that they aren't able to come to agreement on an extension and Larson voluntarily moves or leaves, resigns, or the school says you're relieved of your duties. I can't see that happening right now. Now, again, there's a whole season ahead of us that could change. I did mention this last week. We have a new president at SCSU. I'm not sure if he's really in the mood to step into a brand new situation, and his first big headline grabbing move is to fire the hockey coach. I can't see that really happening. So that might give Larson a little bit of security. The fact that he's not well acquainted with the hockey program, as him being the president, Tom, so I'm talking about, that he would want to make a big shakeup. And I think Larson's a friendly enough guy. I think he's made friends in the athletic department. I think Holly Schreiner, the AD, I think they get along pretty well. So I think he's not burned any bridges in that regard. I don't think he's on a thin rope when it comes to the athletic department and how they like him. So I don't. It would take, like, there was a point in this season where I was looking at that 9th place and losing out on a playoff NCHC playoff seeding. It looked like that was in doubt. Now, if that would have happened, I think our conversation would be a lot different. If this team were to have completely, not even made the conference playoffs, that kind of end of a season speaks volumes more so than, a 5th place or even like a 7th place finish that we had predicted prior to the season. The 9th place, it's kind of like I'm sure the conversations that some people are having around the ASU program. Was it a mistake that this guy was extended, and it was extended by someone that wasn't even part of our school officially? Like, they wouldn't be having those conversations if they were even 8th place, or even, much less above a place in the standings like that. 9th place last place has like an underlined, italicized, bolded quality that other places in the standings don't have. So it can force a conversation, but we don't have that dynamic next year with everybody making the playoffs. So, but still, there's the other things that's changed my thoughts of Larson this year. We've talked about like development issues. And still guys like Ingram stand out as development, maybe not failures, but disappointments. I think he's picked his reputation up a little bit this year with guys like Gross and Bernovic as well. Hall. I think all three of those guys have improved their stock from the start of this season. So that was one area where I was losing some confidence that Larson was still developing players on a good trajectory. Those three players seem to be successes. And I mentioned last week, putting out there that maybe I'm expecting Gross to break that schneid of NHL appearances by his St. Cloud recruits. Who knows if that's going to come true or not? Might not. But the way that I'm confident about it, to put it on the record, should show that at least that aspect of his coaching resume isn't as maybe alarming as it was at this point last year. So, and as we mentioned too, we did pick him for 7th. They were 5th this year. That's no reason to jump for joy necessarily, but it is a slight improvement on our expectations. So I do think that, again, it improves the stock of Larson just a tad. I'm not saying it's the game changer, but so from this point of the season, based on where I was thinking earlier this season or before the season, where this may have been kind of make or break season for him, I think he's improved my thoughts on his job security this season. I don't know if it's changed in your perception at all.
I've always kind of held assistant coaches to a much higher standard than I think I think head coaches are a lot of the fall guys, but I think the assistants are the ones doing a lot of the grunt work and a lot of the development. And with that, I do think if there should be changes, I think there should be changes first. It's, you look at the assistants that like Motzko has had and where, the success that they've been able to achieve. And then obviously with, Oliver as an assistant too, so it's kind of a situation where I do think it's an interesting point to make. And another one that you kind of brought up that I'm glad you did, and it was a little bit in passing, but I kind of want to revisit it, is the attendance issues. And for a long time I thought winning would equal attendance, and we have kind of shown, and I can't say we, I apologize that I even said we, you have shown from your work and your research that hasn't necessarily been the case. Some of the best years in Husky program history, and attendance was still falling year after year. So I think, you said just a little bit earlier about how, there's a lot of outside factors when it comes to attendance. The building not being full, I don't think that's on Larson, or even the performance of the team. I think that has a lot to do with kind of the outreach to the community, and especially the outreach of the students and the enrollment, and a lot of issues when it comes to that. But first and foremost, I've always said that I think Larson is a player's coach, and I think the people like players like playing for him, and I think that where the team is, I think it would have a lot to try to shake it up to get that kind of going the other way, where Larson gets the axe.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if you remember, it was I think it was Billy Hengen was on the Dump and Change podcast, and I think it was last year. And, I think he said he and a group of guys went to Morris Kurtz and was talking about Dahl, and just kind of saying, hey, we got to make some kind of a change here. And that kind of spearheaded that kind of discussion, and eventually brought in Motzko. So I do think that is kind of an interesting, take on it, where, the players will also kind of have a say as well, even though if they, transfer portal, maybe it's a little bit different, maybe they can be gone. But at the same time, this generation of quote unquote kids, they're going to know what they respond to and what they listen to. And if it's that type of voice, they're, if it's something that they definitely want to play for, then I think that's going to be fine. And they'll probably keep him at that point. But all that's to say is that, where the program kind of ends up, kind of over the next year, I think is going to be obviously the biggest telling point.
Yeah, and that Motzko situation, or the Dahl into Motzko situation, that coaching change was unusual because it was very late in the offseason. Late August is when they made that coaching change, about 5 weeks roughly before the start of the season. And Motzko was not on staff. It's not like he was the top assistant. They plucked him from the Gophers. So that was an unusual timing of the move. Like Motzko, when he left for the Gophers, that was right after as we know, it kind of bled from the regional into the end of the offseason or beginning of the offseason. So very, very short after the season.
Quote unquote blend.
So if there was the next coaching change for the Huskies, whenever that is, 2 years from now or 20, it'll probably be like right at it's Black Monday. It's the Monday after your season ends when most coaching changes get announced. And that's probably what's going to happen, especially now with the portal being a new dynamic in the whole situation. You want to make that coaching move as soon as possible to try to position yourself the best when you're building a roster using the portal.
I just assume it's going to be whenever Sandy decides to retire.
I think that's going to be imminent. So I don't. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's the shoe that we need to drop in order for us to get a decision on whether Larson's going to stay or not. I don't know if it's going to come to that necessarily. I think Sandlin's 61 or 62. I mean, if he's in Jerry York, he's in that mindset. He's got 15 years to go. So I'm not sure if that's what I'm really looking for.
Is he really that right. young?
He's early 60s. Yeah,
jeez, he looks older.
Not that old. Yeah, he's been around for a while, but he was pretty young. You can get the job pretty young. Rico Blasi was 29 when he got the head coaching job at Miami. Sandlin was older than that, but mid 30s is when he took the job. So yeah, he's in his early 60s.
Yeah, 61, sure enough, from Hibbing. So I wonder if he's going to be watching, got a close eye on the tourney.
Oh, there you go. I forgot about that. Who do you got? You got a pick in the tourney this year?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose what contractually do I have to say St. Cloud Cathedral, or since it's a private school, I don't have to?
We almost had two Stearns County representatives because Sartell was top seeded in their section, not in Cathedral section anymore, which surprised me. But Sartell lost in the section final.
Well, so Sartell played AA until last year or until this year. So this year they went down to A, and then
okay.
So
that's
why
right.
they're not. That's not
when I was looking at the section finals, I was like, oh, interesting. I've got I'm rooting for Rosemount, right next door to Hastings. They were never our rival though. Cottage Grove always was. Rosemount we never really thought about. It was kind of like we were never dating situation. But first of all, they beat St. Thomas, and whoever beats St. Thomas is I'm a fan of them in my book. But yeah, they're not a team that's a regular in the state tournament. So I kind of like the underdog. I'm sure I don't think they're going to actually win, but they're my rooting interest in AA.
In AA, I think it's like Rosemount, I think is going to be kind of the town that maybe everyone kind of rallies around. Maybe not everyone. But like, yeah, I think it's a cool story, and they've had a heck of a season. And it's like new blood in there too. Now I don't know a lot about Rosemount in the area, and what is it? Southeast Metro, or not?
Dakota County.
So like
right next to Hastings.
Yeah. So it's So I don't know. I like that a little bit of a new dynamic. So they're the team I'm actually really cheering for. I think obviously chaos would be Andover with an 11-14-3 record. They end up going all the way. But I think really when it comes down to it, Minnetonka just looks incredibly good. Moorhead, the defending champion. I think it's lining up for Minnetonka Moorhead. And then you got, again, that classic Metro versus Outstate. That feels too chalk for the AA tournament, though. But I think I like your pick for Rosemount. So that's the one that I'm cheering for. But if I were to go ahead and say and pick one, I'm going to be boring and pick Minnetonka.
If Rosemount's my rooting favorite, but and with Ammerman there with Moorhead, we've got the Cullen connection, defending champs. I mean, Lakeville. I don't like Lakeville South. Andover's got the underdog story with the 500 record, but then you got Edina on the other side of that bracket. No one's rooting for them.
Nope.
So I like Moorhead as well. They might be my serious pick if I'm going to take a pick, but I'm still rooting for Rosemount in my heart.
My serious pick, I would kind of like to see Delano take it. Obviously,
single A here. Yeah, so you got Delano on single A.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at the bracket here again just to refresh my memory. Yeah, War Road they're always going to be they're going to have a chance. Delano, I like Delano's pick. St. Collectero, I went to a bunch of their games when I was living there, but do I really root for the Preppies? Not so much. That's going to be a good game with them in Matamidi first round. So you're going Delano. I'll take the number one seed. I'll go Hibbing.
Delano's got kind of an interesting. They lost 4-2 to Matamidi. They beat Breck 4-3. They lost 7-3 to Hermantown. But also beat Warroad first early in the season and East Grand Forks. So they've had a lot of good wins. So some of their losses are a little bit shaky. How does Hibbing look? I didn't see their full schedule. Hibbing looks okay, incredibly good. We got a lot of good wins under their belt. 7-2 against Gentry.
Who we didn't even mention and I think that's fair. We didn't mention Gentry made it AA.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider them a school, so. But 3-3 against Delano for Hibbing. So that for 6-3 victory over Rock Ridge. Splendid. Anytime I can make a Rock Ridge reference, I'm gonna.
Is that a Blazing Saddles reference?
Oh heck yeah, it's a Blazing Saddles.
It took me a little bit there.
Rock Ridge, splendid.
Headley Lamar.
Oh, I made a. What was the reference I made at work the other day? And it was like one of the 4 references you can make in that movie that wasn't illegal. that it wouldn't be taken to HR. I can't
authentic frontier gibberish.
But anyway, I'll probably think of it like this second.
Going on. There's a couple of good ones. It's a classic.
Yeah, very much so. That about does her this episode of the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. I'm Weldie at More Clappers, MOAR More Clappers. Andrew, you can find him at
Andrew SCSUHHP. That email inbox. We had the 2 good emails today. You can email the show huskieshockeypodcast@gmail.com. Keep those questions coming. cloudcoveragehockey.substack.com. Didn't have one up this weekend, unfortunately. I was traveling, so I didn't have the time to put one up, but hopefully this weekend I'll have one up. Check that out for some scribblings about the Huskies and college hockey.
I feel like we should maybe end like a question.
Curveball.
like, or maybe like a, hey, end of the show, you plug your email and what are your thoughts on Larson? Send us, send us your thoughts, listener, on Larson, and send the email over to Andrew. And
if you're listening, which I'm sure you're not, Dan Jacobson is. Dan Jacobson, do you expect Larson to be Duluth's head coach at some point? Because I'd be interested to know from a Duluth perspective what they think of him. Right. So, send me an email. Let's sound off, as I say on Twitter.
Sound off, exactly. We will a little bit of a change for recording. I am going to be out on assignment, work calls, for something that I do that actually pays me money. So I actually have to travel to upstate New York on Tuesday, but my flight is at 6 a.m. on Tuesday. So then I am going down on Monday night, which is our normally recording night. So Sunday either after game 3 or at our normal time after the Husky sweep, fingers crossed. But so you might get the podcast out a little bit earlier than usual.
I don't think they'll complain.
Yeah. Or Andrew will or still push the button to release it on Tuesday too. And all of this was for now. Who knows? Find out next week.
Yes.
Until next time. Go Huskies. Woo!
Woo!